as much as ever, and we're hearing more about it on the public sector level. You do get phishing emails at home just like you do at work, of course, and they're dangerous in those places. Other types or spin-offs of phishing are something called SMISHING, which uses SMS texting. This hasn't been in the news as much as regular phishing has lately, but it's definitely on the up and up as more people are switching to smartphones such as iPhones and Android devices. Spear phishing is more targeted. It usually pertains to a very small targeted group. And then whaling is a higher level, really the most targeted level of phishing attacks. This is when you're going after executives a lot of the time on a one-by-one basis with information acquired through research, or from previous successful spear phishing campaigns on some of their colleagues. At the end of the day, we're dealing with social engineering through electronic delivery. That's pretty much the way it breaks down. The more creative electronic capabilities are getting, the more opportunities bad people will have to exploit these new technologies. And we're seeing phishing attacks through vectors like fax machines nowadays. So it really, really is a ton of different channels for this to happen. All right, just throwing some stats out there before we get into the nitty-gritty. As of January 2014, there were approximately 33,000 phishing attacks each month around the world. And as you can all imagine, this number is rising literally by the day as attackers are discovering these different types of weaknesses and more people are purchasing computers and other mobile devices such as phones and especially tablets. So how did this even come about? It seems mainstream anyways, but it's really just popped up overnight and people are really just starting to talk about it. Well, of course, that's really not what happened. Back when AOL was the #1 provider of internet access, I'm sure you all remember those days, millions of people logged onto the service each day. Its popularity made it a natural choice for scammers, and from the beginning, hackers and those who traded pirated software used the service to communicate with one another. It was this community that eventually made the first moves to conduct what is now known as phishing attacks. The first way in which phishers conducted attacks was by using algorithms to create randomized credit card numbers. While this method wasn't all that successful, it was legitimate enough to cause a lot of damage and at least introduce the concept to hackers and scammers. The random credit card numbers were used to open AOL accounts, and then those accounts were then used to spam other users and for a wide range of other things. Special programs like something called AOL Hell, I don't know if you all remember that, they were used to simplify the process. This practice was put to an end by AOL in 1995 when, shockingly, the company created security measures to prevent the successful use of randomly generated credit card numbers. That was really the first instance where you saw a huge organization taking these things seriously and really being proactive on warning their users and their members that, hey, this is happening, you know, we're being accountable for it, this is how you can protect yourself. So with their previous scam address and shutdown, phishers needed to create something new, of course. They needed to evolve. Through the AOL Instant Messenger and email systems, they would send messages to users while posting as AOL employees. So those were direct messages going to people using their AIM screen names. Those messages would request users to verify their accounts or to confirm their billing information. And believe it or not, this was really working. And it was working a lot. Nothing like this had ever been seen, and people didn't expect to be scammed via a tool that they had come to know and trust. The problem intensified when phishers set up AIM accounts through the internet. Such accounts could not be punished by the AOL IT department, and AOL was forced to include warnings on its email and instant messenger clients to really keep people from providing sensitive information from such methods. Again, you see a sort of battle beginning to ensue between organizations and scammers or phishers. The phisher finds a new avenue, and the organization evolves and learns to block it. So this is an old image pulled off a blog post that was written on the AOL blog at really the height of these attacks when they started to address them. It's warning users to start double-checking these notifications and updates and look for things like spelling errors and how to hover over URLs to see the actual address. This is one of the first examples of businesses being proactive when discussing phishing with their clients or users. And I mean, the same techniques are really used today. You know, hover over the URL, hover over the link, check the URL. So not much has changed when it comes to warnings. In many ways, phishing hasn't really changed a lot since its days. In 2001, however, phishers turned their attention to online payment systems, which is where it really started to get scary. Although the first attack, which was on an organization called eGold in June 2001, that wasn't really mainstream because it wasn't considered too successful, and people weren't really sure what it was at first. It did plant an important seed, however, in the hacker community, just proving that, you know, this is a new vector and these people could be taken advantage of. So in late 2003, phishers registered dozens of domains that mirrored legitimate sites like eBay and PayPal. This was done using email worm programs to send out spoofed or fake emails to PayPal customers. These emails led to spoofed sites, and users were asked to update their credit card information and other identifying information. So spoofed sites, this is the first time we're hearing of those, again, 2003, and they're still definitely being used today. By the beginning of 2004, phishers were riding a huge wave of success that included attacks on banking sites and their customers. Pop-up windows, direct messaging, all sorts of things were coming out of the woodwork. The chart on the bottom of the screen in the orange box, this was actually pulled from December of last year from the Anti-Phishing Working Group website. They do a lot of research around phishing attacks. So this has to do with spoofed sites. So as you can see, the company name and websites are on the left, PayPal, Bank of America, Chase, so on and so forth. And then on the right was a number of created phishing websites or spoof sites. So essentially, those, as you can see, about 19,000 people in December of last year alone created fake PayPal domains. Again, this is all done by domain and IP address. So even if they were just active for a minute or two before they were shut down, it still counts towards that number. So spoof sites have come a long way since those days. This is an example of two sites side by side. One is the authentic and one is the spoof. And without being able to see the URL, it's very difficult to determine which is which. I would say near impossible. But if we flip over here and now you're able to check out the address, I mean, you can clearly see that the URL is just an IP address for the one where the other one is the authentic Amazon site. This is how advanced these are becoming. The advertisements have dynamically updated on the spoof site just as they would on the real one. So if you would refresh on the authentic Amazon site and refresh on the IP address, the spoof site, you're going to get the same advertisement. So it's literally, they go hand in hand. And really, unless you know the triggers to look for, you would be buying from a spoof site and thus giving your credit card data and so on and so forth. All right, so this stuff is clearly bad news, but why does it even happen? People phish in order to either obtain information or to drop malware that can be deployed instantly or later. That or later part is very important, and it's really what gets people. You might not always see the consequences or effects immediately. It may take a couple months before they turn off the malware or the worms dug deep enough where information is then leaked back to your attacker. So this is a fun one. Can't the IT staff just block phishing attempts? Aren't the IT staff supposed to solve every problem we have, and why can't they block this is a huge, huge question, or should I say statement, that we receive from some people we work with. It's not so easy. Typically, IT security staffers can block emails from networks they've established as being bad or malicious, but phishers are constantly moving to new unpredictable URLs and domains, as we just talked about when we went over those spoof pages. We just can't keep up. Another issue is these spear phishing types of campaigns. They're so small and so specialized that it's very difficult to predict when or where they're going before they've already entered the email system. Basically, we have to implement a click-at-your-own-risk mentality. And it's not just the links that we're discussing. It's logos, attachments, and even antivirus ads and pop-ups. These are definitely my personal favorites. The fake antivirus pop-ups. Kids and non-security employees are very, very likely to fall for these, and these are in full effect right now. Of course, they'll think to themselves, hey, our security team is always telling us to practice good computer hygiene. Of course, I should clean up my computer and update my software. Next thing you know, there goes your afternoon while you uninstall these and reinstall the real antivirus, because the first thing that most of these do is disable legit programs. Okay, so here's a little spoof a number of our team did in May as a demo. Using a perfectly legit program called Backtrack, which is freely accessible, he was able to use a mail server to spoof an email to appear as if it came from Bill Gates at Microsoft. Simple code. Of course, the real key is the link he put in there, which you'll see in the next slide as I show you the email. You can actually put any email address you want. So I could put whomever is your training officer, your spouse, your pediatrician, so on and so forth, really anything. So here's what the email looks like hitting the target inbox. Sure enough, it's from Bill Gates at Microsoft.com. Bill Gates is emailing you, you better click on it. Obviously, this is an extremely, extremely simple example. But the more targeted that these get, the more information I have about you, and the more likely you are to click. This is where that really specific spear phishing campaigns and those whaling campaigns come into effect. So where do they get that information? This is where it's very important to inform your staff just how dangerous social media can be. This is a very simple kind of example you can show your staff. This is my Facebook page. What's most important with Facebook and any social media platform is just being aware of what you're posting and who you're allowing to view it. Again, I can't stress enough how important these simple tactics are to show your staff. It's very, very easy to quickly create a mock Facebook account and start friending people. And many people are a term I have coined on Facebook, serial frienders. They will friend anyone and everyone, and there are such dangers in doing that. For starters, here you can see where I'm from, Lincecum Heights. You can also see who I'm married to, my undergrad alma mater, my current job titles, all information which can be used in a phishing email. You can see a little boy in my cover photo, maybe I had at least a child, probably a soft spot. You can also see where I went to high school. A quick Google search will be able to see other members of my high school class and coworkers. Just a couple more examples here of everyone. You can pop over to my Facebook page About Me section, and people are given even more clues. Again, my job information, schooling, birthday, family, even more ammo. Okay, here's another example, LinkedIn. This is one of my favorites. Just to enforce the idea that it's totally blowing our cover, here's my public profile, again, public. All you have to do is do a quick web search for Megan Horner on LinkedIn, and this is what you'll see, exactly. Just like Facebook, tons of information here. First job, current job, alma mater again, you see I'm into marketing. All of this stuff is ammo for phishers when performing very targeted campaigns. It's just increasing the likelihood that I'll click on those links. Okay, so this is a new concept that's coming about, and it's short for SMS phishing. SMISHING is a variant of phishing email scams that utilize short message service systems to send bogus text messages right to your phone. Just like phishing, the messages may direct you to a toll-free number or a URL, a bogus URL. The website will probably look like a legitimate institution, and it's really, really funny how creative they get when it comes to mobile devices, because it's honestly even more of a simplistic look and feel. So when somebody creates that spoofed website on a mobile device, maybe it only needs to include a PayPal logo in your username and password, but you really need to be proactive in scanning these messages. So once you're at that site, they'll probably ask you that vulnerability-sensitive information, and now it's a new danger to the world of BYOD, as you can imagine. So here's an example of a pretty typical format you may see. There are 3 things you can use to see if the message is valid or not: the phone number it came from, spelling, definitely grammatical errors, and of course the strange web links. All right, just a quick example before we move into how to hopefully train our staff to solve these problems. I'm sure most of you have heard about the huge breach of Target by now. It might have even affected you firsthand. 110 million consumers have had their credit card information or other sensitive records stolen, with many having it sold on the black market. This began back in November or December range of 2013. So by now we're looking at about 8 months out. And people are still talking about it almost daily and definitely at least weekly on all the mainstream news. From changes in executives to drop in stock to lost revenue and tons of other things, people are taking this seriously, and people are noticing that there is a problem and a disconnect here. It was discovered that this attack stemmed from a malware-laced email phishing attack sent to employees at an HVAC firm that did business with the nationwide retailer. So this is where it gets a little bit interesting. A Fazio employee's machine was infected by a successful phishing attempt, and all the data connection to Target was exclusively for electronic billing, contract submission, and project management. So a lot of sensitive data being transferred back and forth between these vendors. So this process lacked 2-factor authentication for many contractors and vendors who are going through the billing and procurement process with Target. So the Fazio employee's machine was infected with malware. More specifically, it was infected with a password stealing bot, which eventually made its way into Target's internal portals. So why Target an HVAC firm? Well, it was probably luck of the draw. It was probably people's bad day. They probably were not the only vendor or distributor targeted by these people. Many of these email attacks start with shotgun attacks that black out emails far and wide. Only after the attackers have had time to comb through the victim list for interesting targets do they begin to separate their potential victims. So it's kind of just throwing a bunch of darts at a dartboard, seeing which ones are closest, and then spending more time on those. All right, so how do we fight back? Well, this is the million-dollar question. How can we, as IT security and IA professionals, combat these attempts and keep end users informed? I know a lot of you probably go for the scare tactic, which maybe is a good one, but it's also one that will leave your help desk with a slew of "I think I've been hacked" or "phished" emails. Instead, tell your staff about certain triggers and help them become another sensor sitting on your network. Training programs and assessments are really one of the best ways to create that secure company culture that you're looking for. Training can make people aware of what to look for, but the real way to determine if they're taking this stuff seriously is through assessment. Throw a phishing email at them and see if they can recognize it. A fake one, of course, hopefully. Assessing it before and after training is what's going to provide that change metric you're looking for, which is going to help you determine what's working best for your organization. I hopefully would like to give people a little bit of credit and think that the whole Nigerian print scams aren't that effective anymore. The one that's requesting a huge amount of sum of money from you to be given twice the amount of sum in return. But you really never know. I mean, this is a short video. It's about 3 minutes long, and this is just the way, this is just an example of the type of training that you can provide people to. Because again, I can't stress enough that you never know what level of awareness somebody may have when it comes to phishing attacks. So don't discredit how low of a level you need to go, because some people, you know, really still get them. Play this for a minute or two.
We've all gotten them before. Emails that claim our Aunt Helda is stuck without money on vacation in the UK, or how the Prince of Nigeria wants to give you $1 billion. And no matter how much we sometimes like these emails to be real, they aren't. They're scams, more commonly called phishing and social engineering. Everyone at some point in time will get some form of phishing email or IM message. They're ubiquitous. The trick is to not fall for the trap. Here's an example of a phishing attempt where an official-looking UN form was sent as an attachment in an email. The form asked recipients to fill out very private and detailed information under the guise of an official request for personal information. Regardless of how official it looks, there should be alarms going off in your head. The UN would never ask for things like your banking information or other sensitive information. There's also the example of the Nigerian advanced fee phishing scam. This email claims to inform the recipient of a sum of money waiting in their name. The letter goes on to say the money will only be released after a sum of money is first paid. But there is no money that will be released, and there never was. The most unfortunate part about when these types of scams work is that they're so easy to avoid in a lot of cases. But what happens when it's not so easy to know? Here's a type of phishing attack that's a lot harder to spot. This is the type that has caused real data breaches. Even intelligence services are using this type of email to break into their target. In this instance, the attacker has done a lot of research regarding the target, and that's what the victim is, a targeted person. The attacker has forged a fake correspondence with one of the target's peers to make it sound like it's really coming from them. The target is then forwarded this fake correspondence, which is supposed to fool them into opening a malicious file that's attached. So how are you supposed to know? You just need to stop and think for a moment before acting. You just need to recognize the warning signs. This phishing example works so well because it's targeted, it's specific, so it sounds real. But the specifics that it contains are things that are probably well known in the victim's peer circle. Does the victim know about what the email is talking about? Is the VP actually working on closing some deal? Is this an email you would expect to get? You may not know the answers to all of these questions, and that's okay. The important thing is that you verify anything that looks suspicious. If anything feels off, instead of just opening the file as the email requests, take the time to ask that person face-to-face or on the phone if they sent it to check its authenticity. It can be the difference between you having a good laugh at some well-written creative copy in an email and you falling for a scam that either takes your money, compromises your job, or allows someone to spy on you. There are no true easy rides in life. If you get an email, IM, or a phone call from someone and anything about the interaction makes you feel strange, trust your instincts and ask about it. Sound too good to be true?
So that's really all it's about when it comes to training. I mean, if you give your users, if you empower your users and sensitize them that they need to be on the lookout for this stuff, let them know that it's okay to forward a message to the help desk or it's okay to ask. That's really all they need is that little push that says, you know, it's okay to ask. An example I'd like to give is when I first started with Mad Security, I got an email from Starbucks, and it said that your manager has given you a $100 gift card to Starbucks. And I was like, wow, this looks really good. This looks pretty legitimate. So I called my boss and I said, hey, I just got this email from Starbucks that said, you gave me a $100 gift certificate to Target, or I'm sorry, not Target, to Starbucks. I said, is that true? He said, yeah, I did give it to you. I'm like, there's, so anything, just let people know that it's okay to ask. It's okay to just pick up the phone, call. It only takes 15 seconds to ask versus maybe an entire afternoon or millions of dollars to fix something. So if I could walk away with maybe one piece of information when it comes to training, it's just empowerment and letting people know that there's really no dumb question when it comes to phishing. All right, so assessments. So if the training part is good, you've got an awareness program set up, and your company is good to go. But how do you actually test whether or not training is working? You're going to perform something called assessments. This is your test and also the really fun part. It's where you're able to mimic this attack type behavior to familiarize end users or your employees with tactics which are being used today. Between this and your training, you're going to sensitize users to recognize different cues and triggers through mock phishing email campaigns. So how can they avoid something if they don't know what it looks like? This is really getting into the nitty-gritty and in the weeds with your users. So an example of assessment can look like this. First, you choose what type of action will compromise your user. Is it simply the opening of the email? Is it clicking the link? Is it opening an attachment? Or is it more complex in that they must actually fill out a form or physically give the attacker information through that spoof site? So getting an assessment tool where you're really able to choose the type is really key to assessing your user and how secure they are and how knowledgeable they are when it comes to phishing. So very easy. Next, you're going to configure the email and choose how advanced or simple any given attack should be. There's so many different ways you could do this. Like the example that my manager had done quickly, I showed you guys previously through Backtrack. That's very, very simple. But you can get creative with it, include HTML where it looks like it's coming from your banking institute. I'm sure you guys have seen some pretty sophisticated ones. So really it's all about deciding how in-depth you want to get. Maybe you want to start out with a very simple email, and that's open only. It really is the sky's the limit with this stuff. So after the assessment is complete, your report details can be assessed to determine which of your targets have been compromised. So like I said before, running assessments like this periodically, especially before and after a training program, is key to seeing if your users are being receptive to change and taking the risk of phishing attacks seriously. This assessment piece is ultimately going to provide you with that metric you need to determine how serious the risk of a phishing attack your company is under. Of course, there's always that one that slips through, but at least you know you're getting somewhere with your users. So assessments are key. All right, so we pretty much covered everything I have on the docket today. We went through history, tactics, training, and assessments. Hopefully it helps you a bit in your decision to move forward with educating your users about the current threat landscape in one way or the other. Like I said, even if you don't want to implement a full-scale awareness program, it's so important to talk to your users about that spear phishing aspect of it, about protecting themselves on social media. And that's not only going to protect them at work, but it's really going to protect them at home too.
Great, Megan. Thank you so much. We're going to wait about 30 seconds to 45 seconds here for any questions in our chat. Again, you can send it privately to Megan or to myself at the iSecure LLC avatar. And really appreciate, Megan, the information that you provided here. As we had mentioned earlier today, you hear a lot of different things from mainstream media, and you hear about phishing and the SMS portion of it as well, but not really the ins and outs of how it can really affect an organization and really do some damage. So it's a great job of breaking that down.
Yep, happy to help. And if anybody has questions offline, feel free to email me. My first name, Megan, M-E-G-A-N, @nadsecurity.com.
Hey, Megan, we do have a question here. One of the questions is, based on all the attacks that take place, is there one that you see that's more common than another? Or is it kind of across the board, they're pretty much even? I didn't know if there was one specific one that you've seen in your travels that folks should be on the definite heightened sense of alert on?
So if they're talking more about topics, instead of vectors, I would definitely say topics is any type of banking announcement. So when people hear from their bank, usually they take it pretty seriously. It's very easy to construct a banking email if you even just pull up your email account and check the latest banking email you were sent from your bank, hopefully legitimate. Really all they usually include is a header with the logo and then some confidentiality agreement at the bottom, and the rest is plain text. So those are really, really successful. If I can give any advice as to how to maybe combat those, would you really expect one to come from your work email, is the first question. Is your work email associated with your bank account? Probably not, so you probably shouldn't be receiving those at work. Another kind of trigger to filter if it's real or not out is an urgent call to action. So usually messages from your bank, they'll email you with like, contact us, and they'll never give specifics because simply that's a breach of privacy. They can't discuss specific information through email. They can only discuss it over the phone with valid last four digits to your Social Security number, date of birth, a couple other things. From a valid phone number given on their website, of course. Never call the phone number given in the email. That'll get you too. But if it's ever like call this number now or click on this link now or your account will be deleted within 1 hour, that's a huge trigger because usually banks won't respond with that type of urgency and that type of hostility.
Great, excellent. Another question we have here is, what portions of the organization would you see yourself working with as far as getting awareness out there? Are you working primarily with IT folks? Are you working with HR? Are you working with the executive team? What silo inside of an organization do you see yourselves working with the most to get user awareness out corporate-wide?
Yep, that's a great question. So I would have to say that it really depends on a case-by-case basis on mainly the size of the organization. So the information security officer is obviously a huge key player. However, in smaller organizations that may not have a CISO, maybe it's the IT manager. Sometimes it's HR even. HR has some buy-in in the decision. So it really, really depends on the size of the organization.
Great, excellent. I believe that is it for questions. And again, thank you so much for your presentation. If you're on this call and you want immediate information from the presentation, feel free to reach back out to Donna from iSecure or one of the folks here that have reached out to you prior to the webinar, and we'll get you some information. Other than that, Megan, thank you again so much for your talk today, and we greatly appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank you all for listening.
Okay, take care, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow for day 2 of our summer webinar series.